Hey, this is Ant bringing you a Unreal Engine tutorial. So in this one we'll be looking at event dispatches, what they are, how to use them, and what are the differences between them and using, say, a normal event or a interface. So without further ado, we'll look into it now. So to begin, what is an event dispatcher? Well, it is a type of event, but there is a difference with a normal event, in the case that this is something that is broadcast across the entire system of Unreal. And I'll go into an example of that inside of the game mode asset here. So if you open up game mode or GM wave spawner, you'll see inside of here there's an event dispatcher on the left hand side. And that's telling a manager to spawn enemies. So essentially, it fires off this event, and whatever hears this event will react to it. You're thinking, well, isn't that similar to how an event would fire? Well, not entirely. With an event dispatcher, the best way to describe it is a radio station. Occasionally you'll get an update from a radio station to say maybe there's been an incident like a traffic jam, and anyone that's listening to the radio station may think, well, I'm travelling on that route, or I need to react to that. And it has the basic principle of the actor that has the event dispatcher doesn't care what's listening to it. It fires the event and it's not targeting anything. The difference is, it's what's listening to it that counts. So let me go into an example of that. If you go into Managers, into Spawn System, you'll see here that I've set up a basic spawn manager with some spawn points around the map. Examples of the spawn points are here. So if I go into the spawn manager and go to the initialize event, which fits on the event begin play, you'll see here that it casts to the game mode wave spawner, and what it's doing is it's binding to that spawn enemies. So this is a process known as subscribing. It's the same way as a radio listener tuning into their favourite station. When this event's fired, it creates an event, in this case spawn enemies from game mode, and to find that, if we highlight this node and hit Alt and G, as you can see there's an event listening here to spawn in enemies. So hopefully that will make sense about what an event dispatcher is. So in the next part we'll look at actually making our own event dispatcher in line with this framework that I've created. Before we create our own event dispatcher, let's quickly just have a look at the framework and what's going on with this level. So it's the top-down map. If I hit play, now what's going on is random suicide bots are just running in at the character, and as soon as they reach the radius successfully, they just destroy themselves. So there's 5 bots that spawn in from different spawn points. So when we reach the last one that's been spawned, you'll see there that all enemies have been spawned, and then that's it. Well, maybe I want something else to happen once those enemies have been destroyed. Perhaps I want the wave to start over again. So perhaps I want the game mode to do something else, but to keep it simple, we'll just use the actor destroyed event. Okay, let's create our own event dispatcher. So to do this, I'm going to go inside of the spawn manager. I'm going to go in the left hand side, I'm going to go into the event dispatcher section, and I'm just going to hit plus here, and that'll create an event dispatcher. So I'm going to treat this enemy spawner as a wave, so there's 5 of them spawning, let's just treat it as a wave. Once all of them have been destroyed, we'll just call that the wave's been complete. Drag this into the graph, and what we're going to do is we're going to just select call. Okay, so we have an event dispatcher to basically broadcast that the wave's complete, but we don't have any logic to check that all of them have been destroyed on this particular wave. Well, we can actually use the Unreal Engine event dispatcher system for this. So if I go to the spawn AI from class, drag from the return value, type in onDestroy, I can bind event to onDestroyed, connect that, And then what we want to do is we want to create an event, and I want to create a matching event. Do is call this on AI destroyed. If you ever see that and you need a bit of better naming convention, just put an underscore in. Hit compile. And as you can see here, there's an event now for that signature. So go into the on AI destroyed, and well, that's going to trigger every time one's destroyed. So we need a bit of logic to drive this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate my spawn event. So right click on there, duplicate, or Control D. I'm going to call this total bots in wave. Drag that in holding Alt, and I'm going to set that. Okay, so we have a variable which is set to 5 integer as a default value. Well, we need to do some comparisons now. So each time a bot's destroyed, I want to increment an integer and then compare that to how many bots were in this wave. Well, I can do that. I can right click this increment node, promote to variable, and I can call this something simple, amount destroyed. Next thing we need to do is, well, we need to do a comparison. So does the amount destroyed equal the total bots in the wave? If it does, then we call that the wave's been completed. Well, okay, so we now have a bit of logic. Well, nothing is listening for this core wave complete. So what we can do, quickly save that. We can go into the game mode wave spawner, and we can actually just grab it from here, and we can do a bind event to wave complete. Follow the same process, create an event, and let's just create a matching event here. So wave complete. Well, all I'll do is I've got an initial spawn enemies manager that's being fired from here. I can just plug this again, hit compile, and let's give that a test. Let's see if the logic works. So bot spawns in. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for some reason that's not looping. So let's investigate that. Okay, so it seemed to spawn twice, but there was a little bug with the code. I think I know what went wrong with that. Let's go back in the spawn manager. Well, the amount destroyed was never being reset on each time, so it will always increment this, and that comparison will fail on the second run. So what we can do to quickly fix that is we can just go over here and we can just set the amount to be destroyed at 0. let's give ourselves a bit of more time so rather than we don't have to wait. So go inside the random floating range here. Let's just change that to something a bit more so it speeds the spawning process in. What we can do, we can add a print string as well. Let's put type wave complete. Hit play. So first bot's running, second, third, fourth, and then that's the fifth. So the wave's complete. So first bot there, second, third, fourth, fifth, wave complete. And essentially it's repeating itself now. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the video. So just as a quick recap on event dispatches, it's an event similar to how you would create a custom event, but the only difference is it's being broadcast all over the Unreal Engine, and it doesn't matter, it doesn't need to be directed at anything by a reference. It's what's listening for the event dispatcher that counts. So to use the game mode wave spawner, that's calling spawn enemies, and in this case the spawn manager is listening out for that. In this case here, hit Alt-G, it'll take you to the event, and all that's doing is it's spawning enemies. Using the example of onDestroyed, essentially that's an event dispatcher that listens when this actor that's being spawned in is destroyed. And all we're doing is we're just performing a check just to see how many are actually in the scene have been destroyed compared to the total amount that was in the wave. Once it reaches that condition, it calls the wave complete, feeds into another event dispatcher. So it could go back into the game mode, which it is, and triggers it again. But imagine if, say, you wanted a door to open based on this. Well, you could just code the logic for that door to open by just listening for this particular event to be listened to. So that brings us to the end of part 4. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Take care.